Hey everybody, this is Dr. J, Professor Spike, and our special guest Joseph Pally on another edition of Talking Stocks. We welcome you all, whether you're watching live or whether you're tuning in at your own convenience. Welcome, welcome, welcome from all of us. Today we're having a special show, one that features AI, not only with respect to AI stocks, but in general, AI past, present, and future. And we're going to talk about the potential problem that we all face down the road of this scary AI singularity. Now, some of us know what
Who's afraid of
singularity
the big
is.
bad wolf?
If you're a physicist or a mathematician, you have an understanding of a singularity, but it's different in AI. It has a different meaning. So let's get down to it. I want to introduce Joe to everyone. Most of you know me and Spike. Joe is the CEO of really an AI type company. I would say it's AI, and it's called zcubes.com, and I'll let him talk more about that later. But we want to begin with Joe talking a little bit about AI in general, the past, the present, and the future. Joe, of course, is a man who is not a generalist. A generalist to me is someone who knows a little bit about a lot of things. Joe knows a lot about a lot of things, so he's not a generalist. That makes him an expert, in my mind, in many fields, but certainly in AI. And with that introduction, Joe, we'll turn it over to you for at least for the moment.
All right. Yeah, AI is obviously taking over the entire, all our attention. These days, it's definitely going to be something that we have to reckon with as a big concept going forward. Many of us are scared about it, as Dr. J just mentioned. But I want to give some contrarian expectations to that twist. The other day, I was telling someone that artificial intelligence, its biggest threat is going to be artificial incompetence. There is there are two angles to it. So AI versus AI. Don't be too afraid of it. It's going to be something that enables you dramatically, and we'll kind of show you when we go through different phases of this. Like Dr. J was saying, this started maybe I think about 50 years ago is when we started dreaming about AI with the Dartmouth conference and so forth, with different attempts that we were doing, the image processing, natural language processing, expert systems, and all that. But it has all distilled into something fascinatingly interesting in the last, I would say, 5 years. And it's going to be a wild ride, but it's also going to be full of surprises. My personal opinion is what you're seeing as AI now is probably 1% of what you're going to be seeing. AGI, that's artificial general intelligence, that's my estimation. And I'll argue about that later, probably a little bit, why I think so. But the interesting thing is it's 1% of an exponential curve. And that means in a few years, maybe 5 to 7 years, you probably will have AGI, and how that's going to be dramatically changing everything. Now we are discussing about these based on what we are seeing with ChatGPT and a few things like that, which are actually early inklings of what is possible. There's only one big player right now, that's OpenAI, but we can expect like at least 10 players by the end of the year. Elon has started Truth GPT just recently. Google is really very promising on this. A lot of big players are going to get involved. Countries are going to get involved. It's going to be what we are seeing now is a very tiny inkling of what is going to happen, and the ride is going to be extremely interesting with enormous amounts of possibilities.
Even TikTok is getting involved.
Yeah, it's basically one of the things that happened. What we are used to as developers or engineers and stuff so far has been that you take input, you write a program to get the output. That was what we were used to for the last 50 or odd years. What has happened now is that it has become to a situation where input and output creates the program, and that creates output going from that point on. So the program is created by data itself, not by humans, and that is the big change that has happened. And we're still thinking of control, right? Even developers are kind of scared of, they say that, okay, it'll take our jobs and things like that, but that's not the real point. Programs are being written by data. That is the thing, and that is a massive change in everything that we deal with.
Let me ask you this question. I have the chat box on Bing, the new one
Yes.
for
Mhm.
Microsoft, and
Yes.
I asked it to generate code in Java to produce the first 100 prime numbers, and it did it instantly.
Yes.
Did it actually create the code, or did it search the internet and find the code?
It's not finding the code from the internet and giving you directly. There, though, on the coding side, at least, it has got the entire GitHub repository and a lot of code that is from all over the place. It, just like GPT is able to understand language, it's a big language model. It's a LLM, large language model. So instead of looking at the text corpus that is on the internet, it just looks at the code corpus that's on the internet. That is a whole set of code. Then it's able to make sense out of it. And fundamentally, GPT only tries to predict the next word. That is really what it's doing behind the scenes. But strangely, it gives you the right answer. And that's, even the creators of AI are surprised by this phenomenon. If you listen to Ilya Sutskever, who is like a chief technologist at OpenAI, even they are surprised. They didn't expect it to work so well.
Not only that, it wrote it really compactly and really nice.
Yeah, but at the same time, it can also give you a lot of errors. I've had experience. Maybe I'm probably like 50% time I'm successful with the coding generation. 50% of the time, it can give you some pretty, bad nonsense. Like, for example, I asked a similar question, and it would give me in C++ or something. It gave me a lot of include statements. Just kept on cranking out the include statements. So it's not prime time yet. It will, and it's also able to explain the code, and that's the beautiful part of it. It is very helpful, and that's why they call it a co-pilot, in the sense that it can work with you to do something, not that we should just yield control to it or something. Especially with code, I would not be totally trusting what GPT gives, because in coding, you can make really incompetent errors, right? I mean, it's only trying to predict the next word. The interesting thing is that it can explain the code to you if you ask it to do it. So it's a lot of interesting things going on there. But remember, computer programming language is a language, just like human natural language, just it's more structured. So it's easier for something like GPT to handle that. So it is not just looking at the code and giving it to you, it is generating the code. But it's up to you to whether you want to trust it or not. I've had, like I said, 40% success with it, 40 to 50% success with it.
So, in terms of, for instance, doing the job of documenting somebody else's code, you would
Yes,
actually trust it a lot.
it is going to be definitely much better than asking a human to write it. It can write.
Yeah, no, I mean, I used to work in an environment where a lot of people kept their code obtruse on purpose for
Yes.
job security.
Yeah.
And so, they say, well, you can't fire me because nobody else could understand my code.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, so at least we have something in a positive way that can
Yes.
get rid of that kind of attitude.
That is correct. That is correct. And it can give you pretty good predictors. Like, for example, if in Bing, I think I especially like the Bing search box. When you type something, it predicts pretty nicely. You almost never have to type too much. So while you're coding and stuff, that helps a lot. If you're writing the code yourself. But typically, what I would say is that anything more than the basic questions, like get prime numbers and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
it's not that great. It can give you, for example, you can ask it, create me a shopping site or something, and it'll create something. It can start you off pretty well.
In 1975, as early as that, maybe it was 76, I don't remember. I wrote on a very early PC a checker playing program
Mhm.
using an algorithm that simulated the way I think about the game.
Yes.
I consider that artificial intelligence more so than the Deep Blue computer, which simply used a brute force approach to beat Gary Kasparov.
Yeah.
But yet in 1997, Gary Kasparov shocked the world by beating Deep Blue. Where have we come from those early days to today?
I think again, the Gary Kasparov case was still kind of brute force kind of algorithm to beat him. The real thing that happened after that is the key. Like that data started writing programs. Previous state is like you put all the code into, you write a clever program that can beat you at chess. That is what was happening with Gary Kasparov scenario. The thing is that just like when Cambrian explosion happened, right, and long back in the prehistory, animals started getting small advantages, and then suddenly there was an explosion of beautiful kinds of creatures and all that stuff. Something similar is happening in the artificial intelligence world. All of these things that came together to make it happen, like for example, image recognition, natural language processing, all of these things were things that we were independently trying out. Like the 1975 timeframe and stuff. The biggest dream that people had was, can artificial intelligence actually solve mathematical formulae and things like that? Theoretical reasoning about mathematical principles, theorem proving and things like that. And that's why, for example, Lisp was made. It was to represent the mathematical formal logic and that sort of thing.
For those who don't know what Lisp is, that was an MIT developed language for
MIT or Harvard. I'm not sure which one it was.
Harvard.
Yeah, I believe one of those two.
Okay.
I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Exactly.
Probably you're right and I'm wrong.
Yeah. So if you look at the Lisp language itself, it is very similar to it is trying to write a mathematical formula like a plus b plus c. They take the plus out of it, and then a and b and c is underneath of it. That's how they write it as a Lisp process. So it's called Lisp processing language, Lisp. All those were actually to prove mathematical theorems and so forth. That's where they were creating that. Then came all these neural network ideas. It never worked very well. Among all the artificial intelligence things like speech recognition and all that stuff, the least favorite of everyone was neural networks. It just didn't make too much of sense. It didn't look right, or nobody thought it'll work.
That was
Yeah, but now all the AI stuff that
Yeah.
is happening is primarily out of neural networks. So that seemed to be the way that nature kind of works. All patterns work or something. There is a mapping between how it works in nature versus what is happening with the neural network structures and stuff. That's why it seems to be working very well. But it works at scale. So like I was saying before, the AI it can be very intelligent. At the same time, it can also be very incompetent at scale, and that's the dangerous part. And so when Dr. J talks about whether it's going to take over and kill everybody and stuff, most likely it's going to happen because the incompetence part of it rather than lack of intelligence. And it's just part of evolution. This is how life has evolved. So if you go 50 years back, all those things like expert systems, they wanted a machine to be a doctor, that kind of stuff, right? Or natural language understanding, so that the machine could talk to you. And these are the things we have achieved now. It looks like we have a very good solution for that at the moment. And strangely enough, if you look at the last 20 years of how AI developed, one thing that happened was all the data started coming together, which was not there before. In the 50 years prior to that, data was never available. Second thing was machines were not that sophisticated. And one of the key things that happened in 2017 is that there was a technology called transformers with attention that came out. It's an architecture, it's a mathematical it's a paper actually that came out in 2017. With that, what they realized is you could take neural networks, and which they didn't scale well when you increase the size of the data. With transformers, they became parallelizable, and it was a matrix operation. They're all matrix operations, like playing with matrices. And the great thing that happened was by that point in time, 2017, we had GPUs that could handle all these. GPUs now started doing mathematical operations, which CPUs were not too good at. So you had 1,000 core GPU versus 16 core CPU. And even though GPUs are slower, they could handle humongous amounts of matrices and stuff. So that's why, OpenAI, for example, decided, okay, let's put all the world's data into it and see what happens. And they did it, and suddenly it worked.
Right now, between Microsoft, Google, I don't know, any other companies that are known to be using AI, let's throw in NVIDIA for infrastructure. which of these companies do you think will have it can have it that will be most affected by AI on the top and bottom lines?
I think we should look at more than just Microsoft and Google. I consider Google to be the leader in this because the transformer technology actually came out of Google, not from Microsoft.
Uh,
It's just that they haven't used it to the best effect like OpenAI did. So Microsoft's contribution to AI has been mostly in the graphics, the image recognition and stuff. They created something called ResNet, which was better than somebody else, all the other players till then. But they were, evolutionary, contributions. But the transformer idea came out of Google Brain. So the original idea comes from there. And that is the fundamental thing that happened in the last 5 years that totally changed the entire landscape. That things could be done within years rather than, 10 a decade or something.
what about a company that has the AI in its name, C3.ai? Are you familiar with them?
They have. I have been hearing about them for a while. They say they work in IoT, everything. And basically, they say they're in IoT and AI and all that. I have never been, but they're not fundamental contributions. They are independent companies trying to apply AI into different places. The key thing with the transformer technology that Google came out with, OpenAI took and ran with it. Microsoft invested into it. So that's why Microsoft is now with the leadership position because they have invested into OpenAI. But if you remember the history of OpenAI, OpenAI started with Elon Musk. He put $100 million into it, started the company, started the open source version of it. But when Transformers came in, OpenAI ran with it with all of world's data. But what you have to notice is they could create the model, the GPT model, in about 6 months to a year. Okay, that's the time frame they took to create that, which basically means, think about it the other way around. Anybody with $100 million can create GPT-like models, but like for certain countries like India and China and stuff, they're creating their own AI models.
Why do you think let me interrupt for a second. Why
Yeah.
do you think Elon Musk is calling for a 1 month moratorium on the development of AI? Do you think it's so that he can gain an edge on optimists or something like that, personal?
Actually, if you look at Elon's own thinking about it, he has always been saying it. It's not the first time. Even when he saw the first GPT version itself, he was saying that this could transform everything and we have to be preparing for it. But 6 months, I don't quite get the 6 month
Yeah.
part. It just looks too much like they don't want anybody else to get the advantage of stuff. But look at it this way: in 6 months, any large entity with enough money can create a competitor to OpenAI because the program is not created by programmers anymore. It's created by data, and what data has. And let me argue, put a little point there. OpenAI is trained on the internet's data, correct, which is openly available, and Reddit and a few things like Wikipedia and things like that. They have had no access to the entire YouTube video frames and audio, things like that. Look at that's where Google's thing come in. They have the entire thing to themselves. Look at all of the enterprise data that's there, right? I mean, nobody has even touched it. Nobody has touched your phones yet, right? The mobile phones with all the photos and all your records and all that kind of stuff. The medical records, nobody has touched any of these areas yet. Now, think about Google's advantage in that perspective, right? Google has the Android that is all over the place. Apple has iPhone that has the rest of it. And so there is lots of data that OpenAI has not accessed yet. So what I'm trying to say is that any company with data is going to be a winner in this game. But and if you look at the companies like Stable Diffusion, they are actually creating the neural network model. So OpenAI has used all the data to create a neural network that then does all these chat GPT and everything, anything else after that. So Stable Diffusion has created with lots of computation and stuff. They have created the models that is now open source. Any country, for example, can take it and customize it to themselves. In fact, they took all the internet's images and they claim that they could convert it into one file that is only 1.5 gigabytes large. That's
Wow.
the size, which has all the essence of all images in the world that can replace what DALI does. DALI is the image generation model that OpenAI has. So there are so many players coming in, and what Elon is really concerned about is not. I don't think it's necessarily his competitive advantage or not, because he can put 100 million into anything and create it. He's the one who started off in the first place. I mean, he can pull the right kind of people to it. And he needs all the Tesla and all the stuff, right? So he can definitely do a very good job with it. But his concern is really real in the sense that what happens to all the jobs that are disappearing, right? What, how will that affect things? And if at all, if some player, like for example, the government in a big country like Russia or China, or whatever, I mean, it could be US also, the government itself decides to do something like manipulate people or do something crazy, or think about this. It's a large language model, right? Which means that you're dealing with language and you can manipulate the language to make anybody do anything. That's what, for example, all the isms in the world are, right? Like somebody coming out and saying something nice and then eventually it becomes something bad at the end of it. So it could manipulate and we have no clue what it manipulated, maybe just out of a mistake. It could be incompetence. It doesn't have to be an intentional change. But if we are all depending on one AI, like let's say OpenAI was the only player there, everybody is using it to create the documents, and suddenly it does something even incorrectly, everybody gets affected by it, right? Like, it starts behaving differently or taking actions incorrectly or something. So that's the sort of thing that we have to have regulations, other ways of preventing such damage. One of the things I would say is in evolution, you need to have many, many ideas happening at the same time. So if only one company or one entity has it, it's going to be a problem. Now, Elon had started off saying that he wanted OpenAI to be an open company, but OpenAI eventually became a closed company and then it went into the commercial side. So that he still believes in the open source part of it, which I think many people are objecting to because they think something so serious. It's like putting the plans of all nuclear weapons out there. Anybody can pick it up and create it. It's going to be a dangerous thing. There are dangers around AI for sure.
Can you talk about AI singularity and the dangers of such an
Yes.
event occurring? And AI singularity is when we've gone too far, so to speak, where there's no turning back, where the computers are in control.
Yes, and that's going to happen in a series of singularities, I would say. For example, in the ways we can understand images and stuff, there has already been a singularity. It's beyond what we can think of, right? For example, AI can take a picture and really describe it to you better than you could ever do. It can take a modern art painting and really describe it with such a sense that nobody else can. No art appreciating person can do that. So it's already meeting all these singularities. But AGI, or artificial general intelligence, is supposed to be the differentiating point. Now, I want you to look at it from a higher perspective, because remember, we are only looking at OpenAI and saying, look, this itself can take off so many jobs and stuff, right? There's one, you can imagine it like a node in the internet that has all this information. Now think about those neural network capabilities coming into every phone, every device that's out there. And they are all competing better than us. Ray Kurzweil said that by 2045, a PC that you can buy for, or a computer that you can buy for $1,000 will be as computationally able as all of human beings combined. So what will that intelligence do? Like the kind of computation it can do and generate and all that, we may never be able to match that. So that's the first step of singularity. I would say don't worry about that step of singularity. It's going to be you may not even notice it when it really happens, but within the next 2-3 years on, then it'll start to do its real serious thing. For example, affecting the political landscape of things, through certain kind of memes and things. It can do it really nicely and effectively. But think about what happens after 10 years, after 50 years of that. What will that intelligence do? Correct? And that is what happens at the singularity. Now, many things that I mentioned that AI, OpenAI at least doesn't have access to our enterprise information and stuff. But there is one thing that it's really missing from them. They have no idea about what are the sensors collecting, right? All the mobile phones are collecting sensor information, different kinds of sensors. The cars are collecting sensor information and stuff. So that's going to be a huge set of data that has to come in and give it, more and more meat to it. What AI can do with it. So I would say the the uh, um, the AGI level, the singularity, it's not going to be like there is a very powerful piece of software or something. It is what happens in our ecosystem, the environment that we have. Every piece of device that we're dealing with is far more intelligent than we were ever used to. And what does that mean, right? And where will we find our own? Like, many people are concerned about their jobs and stuff. How will that job even exist? Can there be companies that employ you to do certain things because machines are doing it faster than you can or better than you can? So it's going to be it's a big transition. Okay, that's the scary part of the singularity. But I don't see it as a date in which it happens or anything of that sort. It's a combination of all these things combined, the amount of computation that's happening anywhere. For example, if you drive a
Let me just stop you and ask you a very important question. When do you think zcubes.com will overtake Google and Microsoft as the number one AI company in the country?
Yeah, I mean, the way I would put it is, I don't want to sound too, weird about it, but the way you have to think about it is these are all exponential curves, right? When
Yes.
it is 1%, for it to become 100%, it takes 7 years of doubling. Okay, and the that's the way it looks. Any time you're dealing with information, at this point, Microsoft seems to have an edge, and Google seems to have the next edge beyond that. But the way I look at it is AI, once it became mature and stable, now you can get pretty much very close to what OpenAI has as a model, the neural network model, as an open source model. So like for example, Google's advantage just disappeared. In search, they are no longer the big player, right? Microsoft, who were nowhere, suddenly they are the player. But the way I look at it is like this: AI is the server side business. On the client side, if you look at ChatGPT by itself on the client side is very thin. It's got no intelligence at all. They're trying to bring in some with plugins and stuff. My way of looking at it is omnifunctionality on the client and artificial intelligence on the server. That's the way I look at it. In that, we are the only omnifunctional company in the world. So, and that's a big advantage for us versus, you look at Microsoft, they're trying
So
to.
if somebody wants to reach you, is that your correct email that I just put up?
Yeah, joe@zcubes.com. Yes.
Joe, can I ask,
Do you have
a question?
Yeah, joe@zcubes.com. Yes.
Joe, could I ask a question?
Joe
One of the things that it seems to be, at least from the chat GPT side, the gorilla in the room is that the place that it's scraping its data from has a lot of untruths in it.
Yes.
Right now, I realize if you just limit yourself to a domain like programming language or mathematics, where
Yes.
all the rules of truth and falseness are pretty well established, then however deep these machines go or these programs go, they would still stay somewhat stable, even if they do get more and more powerful. But once they get into the realms of untruths and politics,
Yes.
like you said, getting into the wrong hands or having some of these bad intents, even like I said, I could ask Chat GPT to write a note for me, but then it could write something completely fallacious, and and I would believe all of it. So my question is that going to be something that makes this overall technology slow down naturally, or is it just going to be a bigger and bigger and bigger nuisance to society?
That's the artificial incompetence part I was indicating. It is a real threat in our acceptance of this technology. Okay, if it's going to, for example, I was asking certain questions. I asked tell me about Joseph Pali. It said I was born in 1872 and died in 19 something.
Right.
I'm still alive. So obviously I could not, I don't trust many things that it says. Like I said, in coding, I trusted only 40%. See, this is what I would code, whereas what GPT had given me this code here, and I ran it. It gave me the right answer and stuff like that. But I had to go and make it. See, finally it did work. But some of the code that it gave me was just, nonsense. So you had to kind of, work with it, and that's where we call it the HAI, the human intelligence combined with artificial intelligence. That's the way we look at it. We have to bring in both of these sides to make things work.
But humans are the biggest sources of untruth.
Untruth is not. Yeah, in my way of thinking, untruth is not necessarily anything. What do you call? It is part of the way we think. right? What is imagination? It's absolute, 99% of it is untruth. It didn't even happen. But we have to think like that to evolve out the right, approach to do the next thing, right? Whatever happens is a reality, but what we're going to do is always unreal, or it's not true until you actually reach the time and you do it and it actually works or not work. So I'm not concerned about whether it makes mistakes. Mistakes are also part of life, right? That's how you learn many things. Even kids learn it that way. All of those things have to be there. But the thing is, us just trusting something that has elements of errors in it and just going with it. And, it's also part of real life. If you look at, for example, corporation or how it works and stuff, a lot of marketing, mostly their lies and stuff like that. So a lot of things like that happen. It's also part of real world. So I'm not saying that AI, in my way, AI should be able to figure it out and give us the right way out of it or something like that.
Larry Muller has a comment.
Mm-hmm.
So seems that the newer AI systems employ the internet as a knowledge base with deep semantic parsing to cut paste solutions that are rated correct by unknown actors.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody want to react to that?
I couldn't put it better myself.
Okay.
Yeah, see, let me point this little thing to you. This is something I wrote in 2009. Okay, and I just pulled up this page from my book, in which I had put internet as 4 different phases to it. The first phase was that it was all full of information and commerce and things like that. Is what I call as the World Wide Web, the WWW. It was followed by the social web, which is I call it the constellations of connected communities like Facebook and all that stuff. That is the period between 2001 to 2007. Then came the giant global graph, the data web. And this is what from 2006 to 2011, that's what we called as the Web 3.0. So this is GGG. Then is the most interesting part. I visualized at that point in 2009 that it's going to be first the immersive web, followed by learning web, and then the knowledge web. And I named it the intelligent immersive imagion. Okay, this is I. What I noticed was Web 4.0 is where we are getting into at this point. Knowledge web, the imagion, that's a term that I came out with. I had no clue what it actually would have meant at that point. But now looking back, and I even named the time, the 2020 to 2025 is going to be the age of knowledge web of intelligent immersive imagion. Imagion is imagination, okay? Imagination souped up by knowledge behind it. This is what is happening right now. If you look at the GPT evolution, what does GPT stand for? It means generative pre-trained transformers. The transformer technology pre-trained, and that is generating information. So Imagion is about generating information. With whether the data is true or false, it is generating something. And it can be completely bogus. In some of these things that I was pulling up the other day, these are all, like I was asking AI, what did Einstein do? And he said he developed the theory of relativity. When was USA born? It said the right term. Then I said, put some pictures. I told them what pictures I needed. It filled the stuff. Like I asked about New York University, it described that to me. Then I asked something about convex lens. I was just asking different questions. And this is I actually asked through a function in our program. You can ask it even without it. I said, make a picture of a girl walking on the beach in Van Gogh style. It created it for me and inserted it here. Now I could take this and make it my background and stuff like that. See, now I'm creating my document with what AI is giving to me. I can ask, when was a SpaceX founded and when was Microsoft, and tell me about what's the difference between a republic and all.
With these drawings that you're rendering so quickly, you're able to put Adobe out of business.
yeah, that because Adobe requires you to fill things, right? But here it gives you the stuff, and now you can go and change it. The only problem that I found is sometimes what they give you, every time you ask, it's going to give you a different answer. So that is something you have to deal with, right? So because if it's giving you 100 different options every time, it's going to be a problem for us.
Can you tell it to draw a picture of a girl on a camel in the Sahara Desert?
Yes, I'll try that.
Really?
So, yeah. So I can actually speak to it. Could you say that again?
Draw a picture of a girl on a camel in the Sahara Desert.
Girl on a camel in the Sahara Desert.
Yeah. This is totally unrehearsed, folks.
Yes.
So we don't know if it's going to work or not work.
Yeah, see, it came.
Wow.
That's a girl. And through the function, I can call it like this, image AI. And that's the way I would do it code wise. So if you're writing code, that's what you'll do. But you see that image came in here, and I can, it's obviously it's got the eyes have a little problem and stuff like that. Her eyes are not clear.
Unbelievable.
So,
Do you believe this, Professor Spike?
I'm astounded.
yes. So yeah, this obviously calls OpenAI to get it, and then does a lot of things. But you could say, for example, what Dr. J was saying a little while back. Write a program to
Tim says, forget the camel. He likes the girl.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing with us getting it into the omnifunctional world is that I can make it my wallpaper. I can edit this and give it different kind of effects and stuff like that. I can say, and I want this to be with certain filters or whatever. Change its hue rotation and grayscale and stuff like that. So you can really do a lot of magic with that image itself. Likewise, you want to generate 50 images.
How much should I charge for Adobe Premiere?
Yeah, they charge a lot of money, by the way. Yeah. See, likewise, if you want to write a program, you just say what you want to write, and then you press. What we did is
What about the program that I asked Bing to write? Generate the first 100 primes. Write the code.
Yeah. So you can even say whatever language you want.
In Z-Cube, in your language.
Yeah. So basically, by default, it will do that. So if I say Alt-I, it'll go and fill it up.
Z-Cube is a language that Joe developed.
Yeah, it basically wrote the program here. The only thing is they changed the API a little bit, so it inserts some unnecessary comments. We are trying to get it removed. So the code came back, right? It also has an explanation there.
Does it compile into Java? What does your Z-Cube?
Yeah, Z-Cube's language converts to JavaScript. So, and by the way, Z-Cube's already has the function to do this. So I could have just said primes, In fact, I could ask it to generate.
Let me ask you this: Are you accepting venture capital money at this point, or are you closed to new investors?
No, we are open to investors. Yeah, so we basically want investors who understand this sort of thing and work with us in getting it somewhere. And we are open to all kinds of investment ideas at this point. I think we have gone past that phase of development, and it is really doing fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
And with AI coming in, it just opens up a ton of.
I think this fits Kathy Wood's definition of innovative, disruptive technology.
Sure.
I would say so. Yeah. See you see that it whatever Dr. J wanted, the code is written, and I ran the code immediately.
Dr. J wants, Dr. J gets from this.
Yeah. So, but the thing was, when I was talking about omnifunctional software, was that we already have the ability to generate the prime numbers from 1 to 100. So it gives you all the listing of prime numbers until 24, 25, up to 100. Wow. So you can do things of that sort. That's what we call as omnifunctionality. It's a lot more difficult to ask this to GPT to just get the answer. Like if you go to Bing and ask this sort of thing, you have to explain too much, So, and the thing is, you can take this itself and put it into a, for example, an entity here. And I could just say equals, primes 100 there. And that gets filled by the answer. So you can then refer to it from your document and so forth. And by the way, this is already a presentation. So, if I just press this button, it actually even gives you a presentation right there itself.
You can save this?
Yes. So I can just go in and save it here. So let me just stop the presentation. I just press this here. So when I press it, it just saves it to your local drive.
Can users get access to your software through an app? Or they have to go to Z-Cube?
Basically we have different versions of the app. Yeah, we have different versions of the app. So you have the web-based version with all the AI interface and everything. Then there is a desktop version of it that you install in your machine, and the third version is what is used for all the server-side purposes.
Can you write down?
If you
Can I write down some of the names of the apps? What are they called?
Yeah.
Or can you write it down?
The apps. Sorry, please. Yeah. So Z-Cubes is the. Let me go in here. So the Z-Cubes Omnifunctional Web.
Yes. Zcubes.com is a website, right?
Yes, correct. And Z-Cubes
the app,
Omnifunctional Web.
What's the name of the app if they go on Apple?
Apple, it's called Incredible Ingrid. So you can search for Ingrid Rainbow or Ingrid app.
Ingrid Rainbow.
You can go to Incredible Ingrid, and then you see that the website comes up, and I'm sorry, not that one, Ingrid app. If you come to zcubes.com, you can install
Incredible Ingrid.
Yeah, that you see this button here, Ingrid app.
Yeah.
When you click on it, it takes you to the ingridapp.com. From there, you can install all your, the app that goes on a phone. So this is the one for media manipulation. So you can, create all kinds of interesting.
Is your app free at this point?
Yes.
No charge.
Yeah, no charge on that. And then it also has the social network inside of it. So all these things are being built by the app.
Would you say you have the same functionality as the OpenAI? I mean the ChatGPT?
Yes. Yeah. The reason is, when for example, you can type it into the, see, this is where you're going to put some text, right? Let's say I just inserted this text. I can just select anything you want and press Alt-I, and you will.
All right. Tell it to. I want to see an intro to this show. Write an intro to this show, Talking Stocks. Write an intro to Talking Stocks with Dr. J and Professor Spike.
Right? It's Spike. Okay.
Let's see if we can do that. I know ChatGPT can do it because I asked it to.
Yeah, I'm just typing it in here, and then I'm pressing Alt-I. It's a weekly YouTube show hosted by. They discuss the latest stock market and news analysis in a fun and easy to understand way. So that's the answer.
Very nice.
When I said it, and I can write it for 100 words or whatever, it'll do that. Just what ChatGPT does, it's exactly the same thing. What ChatGPT
does, they're charging. I don't know what they're charging, $8 a month or something. So they could get.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure what they're charging, but
they can get the same functionality through your app for free.
Yes, yeah, that's right. So the difference is that
they have to. If they do that, they have to donate $2 a month to the Parkinson's Foundation.
There you go.
Oh, yeah, we could do something like that. Yep. So the way we look at it is, in an omnifunctional world, text, images, media, and all that stuff, and code, they have the same level. They're at the same level. Whereas in ChatGPT, it's mostly about text. You ask questions and you get answers back. But we bring ChatGPT inside a document space, inside a media space, and that's what.
How do you recommend the user get their toes wet with your product?
Yes. So the first thing is come to the website. Just browse through it. It has links to the wiki and all that, and you can go through to even wiki.zcubes.com to learn about the technical aspects of it. If you want to learn programming and that sort of thing, this gives you a lot of details about it. And then you install the Incredible Ingrid app, and that will give you all this exposure to beautiful pictures and stuff like that you can make, post all over the place. So that is the second aspect of it. And when you go into the Z-Cubes Omnifunctional, you start to experience how all of these can come together to give you this AI interface on the back end. Rather than going to GPT and asking a few questions and coming back, this is a space where you create everything you want, all your documents and all that stuff, and including programs. You can write very sophisticated programs here. And one thing I wanted to just show you was this is what we use when we go into enterprises and stuff like that. So that's what we call a ZBlack. ZBlack is the server side part of it. So here, if, for example, you can say like add 1 to 100 or something like that. That this is actually meant for writing serious programs within enterprises to create web servers and that sort of thing. What you would otherwise would have used something like
But
Python.
for our typical non-sophisticated user,
Yes.
they should have no trouble navigating it.
Oh, no problems. I mean,
Now-
if the social network, for example, is a place where you experience what other people are making and learn about that. For example, the Ingrid website, Zcube's website itself is created using our technology called B3. So b3.zcubes.com is another part of our offering where you can create blogs and websites and stuff. So this is a way, Zcubes is a way, what we call is omnifunctional, in the sense that it is something you create documents with, media with, programs with, and things like social networks and blogs and stuff, all combined into one space. That is the essential idea. Now,
Beautiful. It's a beautiful
Can
look.
I ask a question?
yes.
The package, does it get smarter when you make new releases, or does it learn as it's being as it's out there in the ether?
Yes, it does learn more and more. Yes.
So how is it learning at this point?
Basically, the way that, for example, you can speak to it, right? It uses any ability that browsers or any of these things, like if the OpenAI gets smarter, we get equally smarter. Likewise, the speech interface, when it gets smarter, we get smarter. And
So you tapped into a bigger network of knowledge, sort of
exactly.
like GPS.
Yes. And the second thing is that in an omnifunctional world, anything that gets added to the omnifunctionality adds to the document or adds to the environment itself. For example, we can create a 3D space. In this, so far we were talking about, putting in content and stuff, right? But you could have just said, I want a 3D space here. And let me see if I can. I got too many things open right now.
Mm.
So you can say, I want a 3D space, and I can create, 3D objects moving around and that sort of thing, all from that, one interface, which basically means, unlike if you take Word, for example, you cannot create a 3D world in a Word document or something, right? Whereas in Zcubes, you can do all that stuff. And let me try to pull that up.
So if it produces something and then you edit it, the act of your editing it teaches it what you'd rather see.
Yeah, it gets better and better. So any new feature that is added to it gets available to all the existing documents or existing spaces. See, for example, this is a 3D world, right? It created a 3D document. So I'm doing a slideshow on the document, and so that is a 3D cube. Let me see if I can go to the 3D cube. Yeah, see, that's a 3D cube.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that it is, it's zoomy. We call it zoomy. So it's going through each of them, one at a time. So it's a 3D document to start with. Let me see if this came up for some reason. It's not coming up. Yeah. So in terms of 3D stuff, in terms of computation, in terms of interfaces to OpenAI and stuff, Zcubes works the entire space. If you take metrics operations and all that, which is used by all this OpenAI and stuff behind the scenes, there is a lot of metrics ability inside of Zcubes itself. You don't need to even go to a language like Python or something to do it. You can do heavy amount of computation right here itself.
All right, so we have to wrap up. We're coming to the end of the hour. So we really appreciate you coming, Joe. And,
really do.
And we're absolutely awed by the functionality and power of zcubes.com and Ingrid app. And anything you want to say, Spike?
No, I guess it's just letting me think that, going forward, we're not going to have to worry about new releases, that everything's just going to be happening in some.
And we want you to come back often and to visit with us, and also let us know when you're going public so we have a chance.
Absolutely.
Yeah, indeed.
All right.
Absolutely.
way, anybody, I guess we want to thank all those viewers that have been watching and that will be watching on replay. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell alongside of it so that does something, I don't know what. Hit the like button, write comments, ask Joe questions. Adios, amigos. Ciao.
Joe, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.